was just a good person, but people took advantage of that. I was always selfless, but no one ever saw my worth. I did everything I could, but life always hurt me. Do these sentences sound familiar? Maybe you said them. Maybe a friend of yours did. Or maybe they were the words your mother repeated throughout her entire life. But now it's time to pause and ask yourself, are you really a victim? Or is this a role you've unconsciously chosen to play? Because yes, some people are truly victims, but some choose to live inside that story. And most of the time this choice is not conscious, because some narratives are taught to us when we're children. You try to intervene when your parents argue. They tell you to shut up. So you think, I better not get involved or it'll get worse. Your classmates mock you, and even the teacher pretends not to see. When you feel something, you keep it inside. Years go by. That feeling becomes part of you, and your mind draws a conclusion. No matter what I do, nobody will ever hear me. This is one of those decisions that doesn't feel like a decision, but it ends up shaping your entire life. In psychology, this is called learned helplessness. American psychologist Martin Seligman introduced this concept in the 1960s. He worked with two groups of dogs. The first group discovered a button they could press to stop the electric shock. The second group, no matter what they did, couldn't stop the shock. And after a while, that second group stopped trying altogether. Later, when they were finally given a way out, they didn't even try, because their brains had already crossed a threshold. There's no point in resisting. But here's the tragic part. This pattern doesn't just happen in labs. It shows up in offices, in marriages, in classrooms, even on social media. Think of someone who has worked for years in a company with a low salary. The first year, they gather the courage to ask for a raise. They're rejected. The second year, they stay silent. The third year, they don't even bother to ask. Then a new hire joins the team with a much higher salary, but by now an inner voice whispers, "Don't say anything, it's not worth it." Or think of relationships. The other person always takes control. Whenever you want something, it's ignored. If you express your feelings, they say, "You're overreacting." At first, you try to explain, you try to talk, you try to be heard, but then you stop, because the message has already reached your brain. My voice doesn't matter. At this point, victimhood is no longer an incident. It becomes an identity. And here's where the real danger begins. Because once you adopt the identity of a victim, many things in your life begin to unconsciously align with that role. You're always the one treated unfairly at work. You're always the one being left in relationships. You're always the one apologizing in friendships. And you start to believe this is your destiny. But it's not destiny, it's an internal model. And that model says, I'm worthless, that's why I always lose. You hear that voice when you're a child, but you continue to obey it as an adult because it feels familiar, because it feels safe, because you believe deep down that it protects you, but it doesn't protect you. It keeps you stuck, and eventually it pushes you out of your own life. Victim psychology is not usually a conscious pain. It's a subconscious habit. And here's the strange part. This habit has invisible, yet powerful rewards. Think about it. If you're always a victim, then nothing is your fault. If your career stalls, you say, it's because of my boss. If your relationship ends, they never understood me. If you never grow, the circumstances were too hard. So you never have to take responsibility. When you're the victim, no one expects anything from you. And that lack of expectation keeps you in a quiet but comfortable place. That's why some people, without even realizing it, keep repeating the same pattern. They choose the same kind of people, they get stuck in the same types of jobs, they suffer the same emotional wounds over and over again. Because what's familiar but feels safe, and the unknown feels like a threat. Imagine a relationship. Doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman. One person is always kind, always giving, but the other person ignores, belittles, or leaves them every time. And that kind person, they go on to choose the same type of partner again. Why? Because the brain, even in pain, prefers the familiar. This is what psychologists call emotional home addiction. Whatever pattern you grew up with, you unconsciously recreate it in adulthood. You end up reliving the same story with different faces. That's why some people become more attached the worse they're treated. They feel loyal to a toxic boss. They go back to an abusive partner. They stay in a friend group that mocks them. Because deep inside, a belief is running the show. I can only be loved if I suffer. I will only be accepted if I sacrifice myself. The more I endure, the more I'm worth. Psychologists call these belief systems self-schemas, and most of them are coded in childhood. If your parents only praised you when you succeeded, you equate your value with achievement. If you were told good job only when you were quiet, you learn silence equals love. If you were taught to always prioritize others, you start to feel guilty for having needs. And all of this creates a hidden victim identity. In American culture, there's a well-known archetype, the martyr mom. She gives everything to her family. She works, she sacrifices, she never complains, at least out loud. But one day she explodes and says, "I gave my whole life, and no one appreciated me." This isn't just a mother story. It's a secret role many people play today. They might be teachers, CEOs artists, partners. Victimhood doesn't care about status. It's a mental position, and it's often invisible, even to the person living it. But here's the twist. Victim psychology doesn't just limit you. It can also manipulate others. Some victims use guilt to gain control. If you hurt me, you're a bad person. If you leave me, you're selfish. If you don't care for me, you're cruel. This creates a passive-aggressive power dynamic. They don't ask for things clearly, but if you don't give, you're made to feel guilty. And now the victim becomes the one in control. That is the darker side of it. People often look outward when things go wrong. People are ungrateful. Life is unfair. No matter what I do, nothing works. But real transformation begins within, because the strongest prison a person can live in is their own belief system. Victim psychology, when unnoticed, can overshadow your true potential. Many well-known figures had to face this story head-on. Think of Robert Downey Jr. drug addiction, arrests, a career collapse. But he took back control of his life and said, "I was sabotaging myself." Or Keanu Reeves, raised by a single mom, lost his unborn child, lost his partner in a car crash, but he never embraced a victim mindset. He said, "Everyone suffers." But some people turn that pain into something meaningful. Then there's Rocky Balboa, born into poverty, dismissed by everyone. But he didn't give up, he trained, he fought, because he chose not to be a victim, but a warrior of his own story. Here's the truth. Victim thinking creates its own language. I'm just unlucky. No one understands me. I'll always be alone. Repeat these long enough, and your brain starts treating them like facts. And then your behavior follows. Psychologists call this a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more you believe something, the more you act in ways that make it true. But here's the good news. You can reverse the cycle. When you become aware of a belief, you can change it. When you name a schema, you can step outside of it. And when you recognize a role, that you can finally drop it. Letting go of victim identity doesn't mean avoiding pain. It means taking responsibility for how you move forward. This happened to me, but I choose how I continue. You don't need to be a superhero to do this. It starts small. Naming your emotions instead of suppressing them. Speaking your truth in relationships. Taking back control of today instead of blaming the past. Because here's what you must remember. The victim identity doesn't belong to you. It's something someone else handed you, or something you wore once long ago to protect yourself. But now, it no longer fits. It doesn't protect you. It limits you. And if you're watching this video, you probably already know that deep inside. Being a victim is easy, but you weren't born to choose the easy path. There's something much bigger inside you. And no, that's not a motivational quote. That's the scientific truth of your potential. Because the nervous system is plastic. When your thoughts change, your brain changes. And when your brain changes, your life changes, which means a new life, a new identity is possible. But that identity won't be given to you. You'll have to build it. And the first brick is this sentence. I am no longer a victim. Write it in the comments. Say it aloud. And remember, You are not the sum of what happened to you. You are the sum of the choices you make from today onward. And that choice starts right now.